Daniel learned early that mornings don't wait for you. They arrive whether you're ready or not. At 5:12 every day, his phone vibrated against the thin mattress. The screen was cracked. The battery already tired. He lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, listening to the city wake up without him. Buses coughed outside, footsteps passed, somewhere someone was already late. The room was small, one window, no fan, walls thin enough to hear other people's lives. He sat up slowly because moving too fast made the day heavier. This was his life. Not dramatic, not tragic. Just small. Outside, the world moved with urgency, men and women rushing, eyes forward, minds elsewhere. Daniel joined them, blending into the crowd that kept the city alive and invisible at the same time. Work filled his hours. Long ones. He did everything right, showed up early, stayed late, never complained. And still, every month ended the same way. Money came, money left. Rent swallowed the first part, food took the rest, transport finished the job. What remained was silence. He stopped checking his balance because it felt like checking a wound. People told him to be patient, that hard work never lies, that one day things would change. Years passed. Nothing changed. One evening, after another long day, Daniel sat on a bench near the roadside. The city slowed around him, lights flickered on, vendors packed up. An old man nearby sold books from a wooden crate. Their covers were faded, corners bent like they'd seen too much. Daniel didn't plan to buy anything. He just reached out. Picked one at random. The page opened to a sentence that didn't feel random at all. It felt aimed. He read it once, then again. Something inside him shifted. Not excitement, not hope. Recognition. Like hearing a truth you weren't ready for but always knew. That night he didn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, replaying his life like a loop he couldn't exit. Work, pay, repeat. He realized something quietly terrifying. He wasn't failing. He was following the rules perfectly. And the rules led exactly where he was. The days after felt different. Not better. Sharper. He started watching people. Not the loud ones who talked about success, the quiet ones who moved without urgency. The shop owner who left early, the man who owned the bus, not the one driving it, the landlord who never rushed. They weren't exhausted. They weren't anxious. They weren't trading their lives hour by hour. Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in years. Anger. Not at people, at the invisible structure that kept him running in place. He began waking up earlier, not to work, to think. At night, instead of collapsing into sleep, he learned slowly, clumsily. Most of it didn't make sense at first. But one idea stayed with him. Money didn't move toward effort. It moved toward value. That realization hurt more than poverty ever did. Because it meant everything he'd been proud of, his endurance, his sacrifice, wasn't enough. Still he tried. Quietly. He noticed problems people complained about but accepted, delays, inconvenience, stress. So he offered something small. Nothing impressive. Just useful. The first days were brutal. No response, no validation. Then someone said yes. The payment was small, almost embarrassing. But Daniel held the money longer than he needed to. Not because of its value. Because of what it meant. It wasn't tied to hours, it wasn't permission from a boss. It was proof. More attempts followed. Some failed, some worked. Each one taught him something he'd never learned at work. Mistakes hurt more now because they were his. But they also mattered. Late one night, exhausted, Daniel sat on his bed and laughed quietly. Not because things were easy. Because for the first time, his life wasn't on rails. It was uncertain. And that uncertainty felt like freedom. He didn't know where it would lead. He just knew one thing for sure. He would never see money the same way again. And that was the moment everything began. By the time Daniel realized his life had changed, it wasn't because of a big win. It was because he wasn't scared anymore. Not the kind of fear that jumps at loud noises, the deeper one. The fear of waking up broke, the fear of one mistake destroying everything. The fear that had ruled every decision he'd ever made. That fear was gone. Money was coming in now. Quietly. Regularly. Not enough to impress anyone, but enough to breathe. And that's where most people stop. Daniel almost did too. Life softened around the edges. Bills stopped shouting. Food stopped being a calculation. Sleep came easier. Comfort crept in like a soft voice saying, "You've made it." But something bothered him. The money felt fragile. If he stopped moving, it stopped coming. If he got sick, everything paused. He hadn't escaped the cage. He just upgraded it. That night he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the people he studied, the quiet ones, the ones who didn't rush, the ones who never looked worried. They weren't smarter, they weren't louder, they owned things. Daniel looked around his small room and asked himself a question that hurt more than poverty ever did. What do I actually own? The answer sat in silence. Nothing. The next months were different. Daniel stopped chasing more income and started chasing permanence. Things that didn't need him to be present. Systems that worked even when he wasn't watching. He built slowly. Painfully slowly. While others celebrated quick wins, Daniel ignored applause and focused on structure. He reinvested everything. Not into pleasure, into leverage. Tools that saved time. Processes that removed him. People who could do what he did, maybe better. Mistakes came fast. One decision wiped out months of progress. Money disappeared. Confidence cracked. That night, Daniel sat alone again, staring at the same ceiling he once stared at when he was broke. The old life whispered, "This is where you turn back." And for the first time he understood why most people never make it. Failure isn't loud. It doesn't scream. It suggests. It tells you to rest. To be realistic. To be grateful for enough. Daniel stayed. Not because he was strong, but because quitting now felt more expensive than continuing. As things grew, he learned something uncomfortable. He was the bottleneck. Everything depended on him. Every decision. Every correction. So he let go. Not recklessly, carefully. He hired slowly, trusted cautiously, built incentives instead of control. When people grew, the system grew. When the system grew, money followed. One morning, Daniel woke up and realized something strange. Money had come in while he slept. Not a lot, but enough. Enough to prove the point. That's when his thinking changed again. He stopped chasing profit. He chased position. Where decisions were made. Where access was controlled. Where attention flowed. He didn't announce his progress. Didn't flex. Didn't explain. Wealth doesn't like noise. Years passed. One evening, Daniel found himself walking past the same bench where everything had started. Same street, same city, different mind. He remembered the version of himself who thought money was the goal. Now he knew better. Money was just a side effect. Understanding was the real asset. And once you understand how money moves, how value flows, how systems reward ownership, poverty can never touch you again. Not because you have more, but because you finally stopped playing the wrong game. And that's the part they never teach.